Do you happen to know a know-it-all? That person who happens to have the answer to anything and everything, and you can't seem to tell them anything? Oh, yeah, you know who I'm talking about. And chances are that person might just be a tad bit annoying. But the truth is, there are times when you and I have the tendencies to be know it alls. There are certain situations that might arise in our lives where the solution or the next step is so obvious that we already know exactly what we should do. So much so that we don't even take the time to seek advice from anyone else, including God, because, well, we already know it all. When it comes to God, being a know it all is never the right choice. And this is something King David understood very well. In 1 Chronicles 14, 8 through 17, we find two instances where David resisted the tendency to be a know-it-all. In this account, the Philistines had just found out that David had become king of Israel, and they weren't happy about it. As a matter of fact, they were so upset that they decided to gather their troops together and go fight against David. Now, when David and his army come within the vicinity of the Philistines, he finds them in a valley, which just happens to be the ideal place for him to attack them. Now, David is faced with a decision. Should he or shouldn't he go down and defend himself against the Philistines? Now, the facts are plain and simple. Number one, the Philistines are enemies of God and Israel. Number two, they're seeking to attack David and his men. Number three, it is David's job as king to protect God's people. Number four, David is a proven mighty warrior who possesses the skills necessary to defeat his enemies. And finally, number five, the Philistines are at a disadvantage because they are in the valley. Now, based on these facts, it was a no-brainer. It was obvious that David should go out and defeat the Philistines, right? But that's not how David operated. David realized that even though all the facts seemed to suggest that he should move forward, it wasn't wise for him to do so or be so presumptuous. He recognized that he didn't know it all and decided first to seek God for direction. And as you probably guessed, God did tell David to go ahead and attack the Philistines while they were in the valley, and David was successful. Now, what's interesting is that right after this incident occurs, David is again facing the exact same scenario. The Philistines were again in a valley, and again, David asked God what he should do. Now, keep in mind, the circumstances were basically the same as they were the time before, and the path that David should take, well, again, it seemed obvious. But actually, it wasn't, because this time God said no. He didn't want them to attack them in the valley. Instead, he wanted David to attack them from a different place. In fact, he told him to turn away from them and go over by the mulberry trees. Of course, David listened, and again he was successful. The point I'm trying to convey to you today is this. Life is just too unpredictable to try to navigate on our own. We've got to get to the point where, like David, we are so dependent on God that we ask him about every move we make, even when it seems like a no-brainer. And the truth is, we must come to understand that the path that seems so obvious to us just might not be the path that God desires for us to follow. Sometimes he might want us to turn back around and go to the mulberry trees. But if you're a know-it-all, well, I guess you'll never know. Well, that's all, folks. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned some lessons from it. If you enjoyed the video, why don't you share it, like it, and subscribe? And as always, remember that you are extraordinary through Christ.